So, are you all waiting for this? How is the wait? Okay. So, I would like to introduce you to the next keynote speaker, Captain Raghu Raman. Captain Raman's unique career profile has enabled him to learn, practice, and teach first principles of organizational dynamics, strategy, transformations, and mindset shift that is needed to lead in a complex and ever-changing world. He has operated in distinctively different environments of leadership. The authoritarian style in the armed forces, an incentive-driven predominant in the corporates such as Mahindra and Reliance, and the procedure-driven bureaucratic style in the government. He has founded and led many companies as well as complex global joint ventures. He has also raised a new hybrid organization within the government, which has personnel from the government and private sector working together towards a common mission. Captain Raman's intensive exposure of working in large enterprises means he understands what it takes to bring about transformations. His concepts, writings, and sessions of the subjects of leadership, strategy, and entrepreneurship are sought after to trigger thought leadership and influence doctrine shaping. He has been a strategic advisor to both national and global level leaders. Captain Raman has a strong presence in leading publications and platforms like TEDx and Josh, as well as media Hindustan Times, Mint, People Matters, Wired, and Indian Express. He is associated with business schools and government institutions, including Indian School of Business, Duke Corporate Education, National Defense College, Army War College, and Indian Institute of Public Administrations. He has been invited for a lot of companies. I think if I keep on telling all, it will be a list. Rather, I would request Captain to next time tell which companies have not invited. There could be only a few. He's also an author of the bestseller Every Time's War, which was endorsed by business and government leaders alike. Currently, he is working in Adani Group as a leadership consultant. A decade in the armed forces, a decade in the corporates, and a decade with working with government. This combination is very rare in our country. Let us welcome this great son of our country. Can I please request all of you to get up and come?
Please sit down. Thank you. Thanks, Atan. Please sit down, ma'am. Please. Normally, you should wait till the end of the session to see whether you want to clap or not. Thank you, Anand, for that wonderful and a very generous introduction. And it's true, I have been very fortunate to have had a fairly unique sort of career profile in a life in which I spent about 12 years in the army, around 16 years in the corporate world, and about 5 years in the bureaucracy. And a lot of my friends have asked me that in these 3 different careers, which one was the most difficult one? And I often tell them I don't know the answer to that one, but I can tell you the easiest one was the army. Because in the army, at least you knew which side your enemy is. Dushman hai kis taraf. In the other 2 worlds, sometimes you can't figure out where the enemy is. I have been a student of organizations. More than a leader, I've been a student of organizations. And I have realized that despite the best of intents, despite the best of frameworks, despite the best of people practicing those frameworks, organizations are still in the need of that frameworks. The very need of individuals such as yourselves to go into an organization to help them transform. Because if you look at the JD of all the leaders in the organization, job descriptions, it is supposed to be catering to that. When you hire a CEO or hire a chief operating officer, chief technology officer in an organization, the job description says you have to be mentally agile, you should be able to transform and all of that. But then why isn't that happening? So I want to begin my conversation with you with a few stories. My friend came here yesterday, I believe, and taught you or rather discussed with you the importance of storytelling. So I'm following in his footsteps. This story begins on the 2nd of Jan in the year 2016. Most of you may not remember what happened on that day. But on that day, there was a major, we lost power? Yeah, a major terror attack in Pathankot. This was one of our air bases, and it's one of our premier strike air bases. So most of our premier tier 1 fighter aircrafts are stationed in that location. And as some of you might remember, it was a terror attack which was foiled largely because of good luck, not necessarily because of, But anyway, it doesn't matter. It happens sometimes. But the interesting part was the next day, the news item that came out in the papers was this headline that in the premier strike airbase of India, there were gaping holes in the walls around it, right? Now, that by itself may not sound very strange, but another news item appeared exactly a month later that the Indian Armed Forces returned almost 40,000 crores back to the exchequer. So you can't say paisa nahi tha diwar banane ke liye. You can't say that, because after all, if you're returning 40,000 crores, you can't be saying that we did not have funds to make a wall. And to make a wall, you don't really need some expert technology, some ITAR clearance on nuclear, regime on sanctions and all of that stuff. You can make it. And we may think about it that, okay, this was a one-off, but that's not true. I mean, this country, like many other emerging economies in the world over, we waste millions of tons of food and millions of Indians go hungry. Which is the city which has, arguably in India, major metros, which is the city which has the smartest people, the most well-educated technical people? Which is the place which has the worst road network? So now you could argue that no, this is because of the political problem. Politicians, are we importing them from Denmark or Norway or anywhere? They're also from this area only. So if at one level we say, no, education will solve the problem, so we are living in a very educated city, but we are still having problems of traffic and all of that stuff. So very clearly something is going wrong. And one could argue, Michael could say that this is an India problem. It happens in India. But that's not true either. Because if you look at this building, I'm sure most of you recognize this building, right? Controls the largest defense budget in the world, $800 billion plus, which is more than the next 20 countries put together. And this country was unable to prevent the leakage of its information. Chinese would hack in regularly and take out information. They were unable to prevent the ISIS from leveraging the platforms such as Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, all of which are not only American-owned companies, but also signatories to the PRISM program, which is an NSA program. And this country was unable to prevent the largest known leakage in the history of espionage in the form of Edward Snowden, who on investigation turned out was a CIA contractor whose background check had not been done. Now this country which taught background check to everybody, including Bangalore, that country's Pentagon, CIA, operative contractors' background check was not done. So very clearly this is not an issue of funds, resources, knowledge. Don't tell me that Pentagon doesn't have SAFE and other practitioners, framework and Deloitte and KPMG and McKinsey and their brothers and sisters. They're all there. So what's going on? What's happening? And I think if you were to look at it, my sense is that as organizations grow, like human beings, they start getting some diseases. Just like when a human being is born, from that time onwards, that disease starts. Of course, it manifests when we grow older. But similarly, in organization, there are these three diseases, and I want to share them with you one by one. And as I was just speaking before we began, we can speak whatever lingo you want in our brochures, in our frameworks, and show these fancy pictures which show the connectivity and all of that of how change can be brought about, transformation can be brought about, and that may be very, very exciting for you because you made those slides. But whether it's a transformation vision of an organization, whether it's a country's national security policy or a country's policy, the last 100 meters of India's national security foreign policy has to be delivered by Havaldar Santa Singh. If he doesn't understand it, it doesn't really matter how much of diagram and this and that and how much you jazz them up with PPTs. It's not going to... I've seen transformation manuals which are this thick, That's not going to happen in an organization, no matter how excited you are about the transformation, right? It's not going to happen. So I think these three diseases that I'm going to talk about are basically as an organization starts growing or as it starts, and aging starts from the time of a startup. There is a 10-man startup, when it becomes 40-man, it's already aged. And then it grows bigger, it ages even more. And a 5,000-man company or 5,000-person company is aged quite a lot in terms of size. The second is, as people age, they also get coronary hardening, and I'll talk about that. And the last is Alzheimer, which we'll talk about. What is Alzheimer? Each one of these I'll talk about, and it'll be easy to understand. And most importantly, Havaldar Santa Singh will understand it, right? Is the sergeant. We normally refer to that no matter what plan the generals have, it's the sergeants who have to deliver it. So they have to understand it. So let's begin with the first one, which is as organizations grow, they automatically start becoming bureaucratic whether you like it or not. So all these buzzwords will be there, agile, super, this thing, that thing. But we all know that actually our power is reducing as we go forward, right? I remember about 15, 20 years ago, I was a CEO of a smaller company, Mahindra Special Services Group. And in an afternoon, I met my potential head of sales. And for about a half an hour in a coffee shop, I liked the guy, shook hands. He was at that point a CTC of about 25 lakhs. This is about 15, 16 years ago. So today's terms, it will be about 2 crores. And I shook hands with him and I told the HR to hire him. Today, forget about 2 crores, even a 70 lakh hire, you know this, 50 lakh, 70 lakh hire, there'll be a panel that will sit, there'll be a committee, then some Egon Zender, Eon Zivit, and all of these, Corn Ferry will give their. So, this is happening despite ERP, SAP, SMS, email systems, we are actually becoming slower. And you can actually visualize this as a metaphor. You recognize this vessel? There's a super tanker, which is sailing in uncharted waters, because future is uncharted, no? You don't know. COVID will come, what will come, you have no idea. So as the ship is sailing, I want you to visualize suddenly the lookout, who's, looking over the bridge, he suddenly shouts, there is an iceberg ahead. What do you think is happening in the control tower of this ship right now? Nothing? I mean, come on. There is a panic that has been this young guy who's standing on top of that post has just shouted that there is a big danger ahead. If as safe consultant you say do nothing, then there's a big problem. Okay, we need to go back to the drawing board and check your frameworks. So what do you think is happening in the bridge? Panic. Okay, these guys are, expert people. They've been sailing this ship for years. They're CEOs. They're, big guys. They won't panic. So what will happen? Sorry? Emergency protocol. Need to take action, that everybody knows. Obviously, iceberg ahead, we have to take action. This is a motherhood statement, you need to take action. Of course, we need to take action. But what action? What do you think is happening there? So, anybody, change the direction. So, anybody who spent any time in the corporate world, more than 5 years, how much have you spent? Anyone of you? More than 5 years you have spent in a corporate world. You will know the first thing that will happen in the bridge is that some senior fellow will say, he's too junior, jaake check karo dobara se. Send some senior fellow over there. What does he know about the might of our ship and all of that stuff? We are this 5,000-man organization, so what, but if some iceberg is there, some senior chap has to go and check. So a senior chap will go and verify before telling the captain. After all, somebody has to go and verify first. Now the senior guy who goes up and verifies, he also says, yeah, this is a big iceberg up ahead. Now the debate begins that should we turn right or should we turn left? Because if you turn right, certain divisions will be shut down, certain satraps will lose power, certain vice president will be merged into one and asked to VRS. If you turn left, there will be certain opportunities which will be lost, certain revenue which will stop. So the debate will continue, right, left, right, left, right, left. These people who are debating in the bridge, do you think they are more concerned about the ship's safety or their job safety? It's human nature. This is not anecdotal, this is not funny. You will do exactly the same thing if you're in their feet. Matter of fact, we may have all done it in our lives. Let's not kid ourselves, right? So, as this debate is continuing, do you think the window in which they could execute a successful turn, it's becoming bigger or smaller? Smaller and smaller, and finally a stage will come, 11th hour, when command decision will be taken, okay, turn, hard turn right. Now, but this time, the nose of the ship will miss it, but the butt will go and hit it, and dharam, there will be a massive shuddering, and there is suddenly a breach in the left-hand side, old water has started flooding in, and the ship has started listing to the left. Are you with me so far? Now, the ship listing to the left is visible to everybody. The people in the ship, they know that we are tilted to one side. Analysts are seeing it. There is no growth happening in that company and all of that. So the first thing that the management of the ship has to do is to make it even keel. Now, how can you do that in mid-sea? The only way to do it is you flood the right-hand hold. So when you flood the right-hand hold, the ship comes to an even keel, but now the drag increases. Speed slows down. People are looking again, no growth happening, no major contracts being won and all of that stuff. So now what the leadership of the ship has to do is to pump more oil into the engine to retain the same speed that they had before. This in one single line describes the biggest challenge of most of the organizations you're looking to serve or you work in. You're spending more fuel per kilometer of progress than what you used to spend 5 years ago, 8 years ago, 12 years ago, or what your nimbler competitors need to spend. So pretty much like arthritis, you know exactly what you need to do, but by the time you go and pick up the glass and bring it to your lips, someone else has come and taken it away. Do you understand the concept? Is that making sense? Now, for a large part of my career, I was involved in the field of counter-terror. And there my job was to degrade the performance of organizations. If there's a terror organization whom we are battling, it is our job to degrade the performance. And we found that if you liquidated this person, neutralized this person, neutralized this person, there won't be that much damage that would happen to the organization, because as you can probably make out from this diagram, these are individual contributors. And these people, their loss or their liquidation doesn't really affect the organization's capacity or lethality that much. But instead of them, if we took out these people, then suddenly the impact on that organization is far more, because as you can see in this diagram, they are nodes. They actually make things happen. And you have all encountered these nodes, not terror nodes, but normal nodes, which are also almost as dangerous as terror nodes in organizations, who will stop growth. He's on chutti, the file is not being cleared because that officer is not there, so-and-so signature is not used. Half the time you see this half-built roads, half-built bridges in which nothing is happening. It's because some committee has to come and examine it, so that joint secretary is not there, not available, and so that contractor has not been given his second tranche, so he stopped work. This is what is happening. This is all nodes. So instead of degrading an organization, if we had to make it more resilient, how would you go about doing that? So many years ago, I read an article in Reader's Digest. It was titled, How to Kill Your Husband. Ladies might want to take notes now, right? So it basically, she's taking notes, Odile is taking notes. Basically it started with saying that, when your husband wakes up in the morning, give him a lot of very cigarettes to smoke, greasy food, eggs and bacon, lot of black coffee throughout the day, keep texting him, tension, this, that, falana, dimka. When he comes back, give him a lot of alcohol, again more greasy food. Don't encourage him to exercise, throughout the night keep troubling him. So basically, of course, the article was tongue-in-cheek, and it said that, and in case you want to do the opposite, you want your husband to live long, then just do the opposite of what? So if in an organization we have to build fluidity, we have to build resilience, we have to build speed of trust, as I call it, then what you need is to create an organization which has many, many informal connections in it. Not formal connections, not the org chart, informal connections. You need Prakash talking to Rahul, not Vice President Finance talking to Vice President Marketing. You need people to talk to each other. And for that, there are two very important steps that need to happen. The first step is the importance of backstories. All the actors, individuals who are involved in running an organization, they all have a backstory, right? It's an irony that we often spend, not often, we always spend more waking hours with our working colleagues than with our own families, waking hours. And yet, usually we know their CV stories. We know their CV stories, what's written on their resume, which is usually a very embellished form. It's all, buddy, I did this, did that, I flew aircraft, test pilot. It's not about how you were betrayed by people, how you betrayed people, how you were cheated by people, how you cheated. It's not about the real person. Now, most of you would have recognized this character here. Yeah? Right now, for the benefit of our two expat friends who don't know who Shakuni is, can someone at least in one or two lines tell them who is Shakuni? Sorry? You know, for people who are going to lead transformations, you are awfully quiet, huh? I have to tell you this, because I think transformation is all about conversations with people and all of that. You all know who it is? How many of you know? Then why can't you explain to them? Anand, you only tell, no?
He is the mastermind behind the huge war.
He is, yeah, exactly. He is the villain of one of the most epic of Mahabharata, like one of our Indian epics called Mahabharata. He is considered to be the villain who actually caused this war between these two clans. So there was a clan called the Kaurava clan, and there's a clan called the Pandava clan. And our man is the one who actually, many people say, instigated the war and destroyed, causes the destruction of both the clans. So this is a story that we've all read in Amar Chitra Katha. Yeah? How many of you know backstory of Shakuni? Okay, very few people here in this group, so I'm going to narrate it. Please correct me or, put me in direction if I go wrong. So Shakuni is actually the son of the king of Afghanistan. His name is Shambhal. The king's name is Shambhal. And Dhritarashtra, who is the head of the Kaurava family, that clan, he wants to marry the sister of Shambhal, which is the queen of Kandhar, known as Kandhari. She is supposed to be the most beautiful woman in the world. And Dhritarashtra, by the way, technical point, is blind. The blind man wants to marry the most beautiful woman in the world. And of course, when he reaches out to Shambhal, the brother, being a good brother, he tells him to take a walk and says, I'm not going to get my sister married to you. But Dhritarashtra is a very powerful king, so he sends this general called Bhishma, who is an undefeatable warrior who captures the entire clan and brings the whole clan to India. And Dhritarashtra is married to Gandhari. Gandhari is actually married to him forcibly. And all this we read in the Amar Chitra Katha, that she voluntarily puts a bandage on her head to commiserate with her husband who is blind. So she also ties a blindfold in her head. It's not very true, because if you read the detailed version, you realize that the Gandhari actually suffered from the phobia of darkness. She had to have a lamp lit in her room even to go to sleep. So there's no way that she would have voluntarily done it. But anyway. Now, as the story progresses, Dhritarashtra discovers that Gandhari is technically a widow. Now, you're aware in India we have this system of Mangaliks. These are women who are born under supposedly an inauspicious star, and therefore they are first married to a tree and then married to a husband, because the legend is if they are married, their husband will die. And so they're married to a tree, the tree is cut, and then in Afghanistan they do it with goats. And Gandhari is technically their equivalent of a Mangalik. So Dhritarashtra discovers this and he's furious. And he says that I have been cheated by your family, I've been married off to a widow. So he sentences the entire family to death. Shakuni, in the meanwhile, is a small boy. He's also in the dungeon with the entire family, because the whole family has been captured and put into the dungeon. And Dhritarashtra ordains that they will die, and they will die by slow starvation, which means that they will be given a small quantity, barely enough to keep them alive, prolong their agony. So this is the time Shambhal decides in the dungeon. He calls the entire clan together and says, one of us must survive to take vengeance. Can't be the strongest one, because I was the strongest one and look what happened to me. It has to be the most intelligent, the most cunning one. And for that, he devises a test inside the dungeon. And that test is, whoever can put a thread through a grain of rice, whoever can thread a grain of rice, that is the person who we will select as the sole survivor. Shakuni manages to do that, and I'll tell you in the end how he does it. So I want you to visualize this scene inside the dungeon, dark, dreary, cold, rats. It's a dungeon in which the entire clan of Shambhal is there, and they are slowly being starved to death. But they all decide that Shakuni has to be kept alive. So whenever the jailer comes and gives them that one nivala of food, they put it in their mouth. They can feel that. The saliva can feel it. Their intestines are burning with hunger. But they wait for the jailer to go away, and then that food is taken out and given to this boy to ensure that this boy stays alive. And one by one, Shakuni sees each one of his siblings, cousins, brothers, sisters die. By this time, Gandhari manages to convince Dhritarashtra that leave at least one male member alive. so that the clan will continue. And Dhritarashtra says, okay, fine, in that case, Shambhala I'm not going to spare, but this boy, I'll spare his life. So the last night in the dungeon, Shambhal and Shakuni, they're spending the last night together, because the next day, Shakuni is going to be sent to Kandhar as the prince of Kandhar, and Shambhal is going to be executed. So the father and son, they are having a last conversation. And the father tells his son that, the thing is, you're a very small boy right now. He's just 7 years old. And though you have witnessed all this, and though you have seen your family die, the moment you will go to Kandhar, you will forget all of that, because you will become a prince, and then there's wine, women, this, that, you are going to be a king, and you will forget your true purpose. And the boy, of course, said, no, I'll remember each and every day, I'm going to take vengeance. He said, yes, you're saying that now, but you will not be able to remember all of this stuff. And so therefore, I have to do something to you, so that you remember every step that you take in your life, what your true purpose is. And it is the father who lays his son down and breaks his legs and his feet and turns him into a cripple, so that every step that Shakuni takes for the rest of his life, he will remember what his true purpose is. Now we come back to how Shakuni managed to thread that grain of rice. He takes the grain of rice and plugs it, blocking a hole through which ants enter into the prison. The ants bore a hole through that grain of rice. Ironically, Shakuni has nothing against the Pandavas. He has no enmity against the Pandavas. He is just using the Pandavas to bore a hole through the Kauravas and destroy the Kaurava clan exactly like his clan was destroyed. Now, after hearing this backstory, what do you think about Shakuni? Do you think he is an evil man? Now you say, मैं होता तो इससे ज़्यादा करता भी, right? Now, in 5 minutes of a backstory, you have transformed the way you think about Shakuni, and Shakuni, for most of us, many of us, has been the epitome of a villain from the time we have grown up. It's always a villain, always a villain. And in this 5 minutes of a backstory, you have changed your mind about this person completely. If you want to get velocity happening in an organization, if you want to get vice president marketing and vice president HR or vice president finance to turn into actual human beings talking to each other, you need to create environments where they can figure out what each other's backstory is. And how can you do that? How can you create that environment?